Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Way of Life. I'm your host, Gus Holland. Today's going to be a question and answer episode. Had a few of you submit questions from through Instagram at Way of Life Podcast, and then also got a couple on the hotline, which is 346-200-7168. That's a hotline where you can just call and leave a message asking a question about whatever, supplements, exercise programs, anything really. Anything you want to hear answered on the podcast. But I guess our first submission was somebody that said, am I too old at 51 to enter my first strongman competition? You are not. Most strongman competitions have a 50-year-old plus category to compete in. That is something that you'd fall into. And then also it's customary to do your first 1, 2, or 3 meets in the novice category. So you could do either one of those and you'd be just fine. I'd suggest obviously doing at least one show in the novice. I think that's actually mandatory. But you can go to ironpodium.com and you can look at all of your all upcoming strongman events, and I believe you can search by area as well. I'm not sure, but normally I do that, or I type in, like, I'm based in Texas and I don't mind traveling to most places in Texas, so I just type in like Texas Strongman Events 2022 and go through there. Iron Podium is basically the go-to for those events, and each event is different, but it will list all of the details and rules when you click on the event. Date, time, cost of registration, what equipment is allowed, and then what events they'll be having, as far as what lifts you're going to have to accomplish. So that's another thing to go by if you have some sort of injury or something, being older, if you've been in the weightlifting community and say you've got a tricky shoulder or something, you don't want to do overhead press, then you can go look through those events and pick events that have the lifts that you want to compete in. But yeah, I always suggest that you go after something you want to do. You're not too old. Another question that I received was based around an injury or an irritation. Somebody's sciatic area had kind of flared up. They're not quite sure what it was from. It was, exercise related. Well, so their sciatic area had kind of flared up. It was giving them problems, tension in the lower back, the kind of like burning pain all the way down their right leg. And they were wondering if you could continue to work out while that was healing, ways to help that heal faster, and or also if they should just completely take a break, or while that was getting resolved. In my opinion, I would not stop training altogether. I would just do things that avoid that problem area. If it's your sciatic area, obviously you're not going to want to do something that puts too much pressure on your lower back or pulls it in a certain way that is irritating to that area. It does not hurt to take a few days off. obviously, especially if it's like heavily inflamed or something like that. Your health is top priority. You can train through the healing process, though. I mean, there's still, if your lower back's, recovering, you can still train arms, shoulders, some of your legs without messing with that area too much. It all depends on the level of damage to the area, and what actually irritates it. I'm not a doctor, so if you go to the doctor and he's like, yeah, it's pretty jacked up, you should take a few days off, you should take a week off, whatever. You don't really start seeing like an actual, like a drop in strength that actually counts until the third or fourth week of not training at all. So yeah, I would do whatever fits your lifestyle and your goals, really. Like if you're already ripped, you're already super strong, all that, like just take the time off, really, in my opinion. But some people can't or don't want to do that, and that's cool too. Another question that I received was someone that was younger that was looking for simple ways to increase muscle mass. There's not really a simple way. It's all going to take dedication and time. But if you're a teenager, maybe like looking to put on weight for football or something like that, it's going to be greatly affected by what you consume on a daily basis. If you're eating 5 or 6 small meals a day that come out to 15 or 1800 calories a day, and you're like, I don't know, I'm not gaining any weight. Well, you need to eat more. That can be done by increasing your caloric intake as a whole, like from a day-to-day basis. Like if you go from 1500 calories to 2200 calories, you're going to start seeing an improvement in your weight gain and your strength gains, as long as you're training and stuff. But that can be done by, like, if you prefer to eat smaller meals throughout the day, you just turn those 5 meals that are small meals into medium-sized meals, like as far as macros go. Or you can switch it up and you're like, well, I'm just going to eat 3 large meals a day with like 2 or 3 snacks in between, basically like a protein shake, some beef jerky, a protein bar. There's all kinds of different stuff you can throw in there, and it all depends on what your goals are and everything. But that's going to be the main way that you're going to increase in size, is eating more. And then what you're eating and how often you're training and the type of training you're doing will determine your body composition. Because you can not train at all and you can up your calories by 1,000 or whatever, and you're going to gain weight. The amount of fat that you're going to gain doing that while not exercising versus doing that while exercising will differ. So keep that in mind. The other thing is, there's a question about training specific exercises for training sports or for a particular goal, even if you're like going to compete in strongman and everything. The number one thing, especially if you're a novice, especially if you're a novice, is to make sure you've got the basics completely covered. That means you understand breathing. Well, through all the different exercises you do, you understand the right time to inhale, exhale, like it sounds ridiculous, but it's actually something most athletes should Google. I see it all the time, even from influencers, just not breathing properly or holding their breath while they're doing crazy exercises and stuff like breathing. That's a basic. Bracing, which is basically complete control of your core through weight loaded exercises. If you're running, there's running technique, going over, like, knowing all your dynamic stretches versus your static stretches. Obviously, I always suggest doing dynamic stretching before weightlifting and not static. Static's fine to do afterward or on a recovery day, something like that. But the main thing is to cover all those basics before you're going into like specialized training. And it won't take long. Like, you can dedicate, if you're already fairly knowledgeable and you've been training and you've been doing sports or whatever, like, you can really just brush up on those topics probably. But yeah, that's the main thing. Breathing, bracing, variations of stretching, like static versus dynamic, and the pros and cons of those. Before I go, there are two topics that I wanted to talk about that weren't necessarily questions. They do pertain to the people that are listening, but it's just been bothering me, really, that I've been seeing online. Two different things: the overuse and misuse of pre-workout and caffeine. Your body can only handle so much caffeine per day. Depending on what website you read, it normally varies between 500 and 600 milligrams per day of caffeine. Bonji, who was on an earlier episode and who is an actual medic and has been in the armed forces, has always told me 500 milligrams is like the max for the day. If you're drinking 2 energy drinks a day, you're definitely hitting that 500 a day, and depending on the brand, some of those would have you hitting 600 or 700 a day if you drink 2. So, and that's not even talking about pre-workouts. I mean, there's pre-workouts out there that, like, for a serving have like 400 milligrams, and your people are dry scooping that shit, and you're just taking 400 milligrams to, like, your body's getting it dumped in like a few seconds, and you're just overloading yourself at that point, and you're getting the desired effect, because they're basically people that are doing it either for video content, or they see somebody else doing it for video content and are like, oh, I'm going to try that. There's a lot of like risk factors with that. I would not ever suggest that. Like, I don't know. It's crazy. Like dumping 400 milligrams into your system with little to no water is not good. You're probably gonna feel sick, and you're probably like gonna ruin your performance during your training session. Honestly, there is a point of like diminishing returns, and once you start getting like jittery and nauseous, you're doing too much. So that's your body telling you to like chill out. I've seen a lot of guys that don't do pre-workout at all. Like, they just go in and do the work. Like, that's the main thing, is to do the work. Keep track of your technique and your form, and hit the target weights that you're doing. Definitely, like, motivation is always helpful. Music, pre-workout here and there, caffeine here and there, whatever. But just the main thing is like your health, to take care of yourself. And on top of that, all that caffeine, like you don't want to like shit yourself mid workout or whatever. So that's gonna be a party. Final thing I wanted to touch on is overcomplication of exercises. Doing this, like that's a very general statement, but doing that is just going to exhaust you over time. Not necessarily physically. I'm talking about mentally. I see a lot of influencers they're trying to like either hit the newest big trend or create something that hasn't been done, which is like always cool. Like innovation is key, but a lot of this shit is just overcomplication of things that you can do that are basic, that you can find in old school books and magazines about bodybuilding or weightlifting, powerlifting, strength training, whatever. I see people like incorporating, like I saw a video the other day of somebody trying like basically incorporating parts of 3 different bicep curls into one movement. And it looks cool. And they're like, yeah, you're going to feel it. And yeah, you are going to feel it, but you're missing. It's real hard to explain, but like if you start off, okay, we'll say you have your arm dropped and you start off, the first part of the exercise, first half of going up is from the first exercise. Then the second half is from the second exercise. And then going down is from the third exercise. You're missing the pros. You're just missing a lot of benefit from each one of those movements by splitting them up like that. Like you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it way more. Like I'll just do an example. Like you can basically incorporate through twisting and all this other shit. You can incorporate a hammer curl into a bicep, like a bicep curl into a hammer curl, and then a reverse grip curl down. If you just keep spinning your hand basically throughout the movement, and you can literally do grab a whatever's comfortable for you, somewhere between 10 and a 20 pounder dumbbell, 25 maybe if you're like whatever. This is if you're like above average strength basically, and it's going to vary based on your size, but you can do a set of 8, and we'll just for the purpose of this explanation, we're just going to focus on one arm. So you're going to do a set of 8 bicep curls, right? You're going to set the weight never changes. You set the weight down, maybe take a breather, like I'm talking about like 10 seconds. Pick the dumbbell back up, do a set of 8 probably set of 8 hammer curls, set it down, take another 10-second breather, then same amount of weight. So, reverse curl, one set of 8. And then do that cycle 3 times. You're going to get way more benefit from that than incorporating all of those movements into one exercise that you do for 3 sets of 8. And really it's because you're doing a lot more work, but the benefits are going to be way better. Sometimes just haphazardly combining shit just to look cool or to try and do something new isn't necessarily always better. I guess that's my little soapbox rant for today. I do want to thank y'all so much for tuning in. I have been sick on and off recently. That's why the episodes have been late. I do apologize for that. I also had to have a tooth pulled, and I'm healing from that right now. Got some interviews scheduled, and we are back on track. So do not worry about that. We will have an interview that should be coming out Wednesday. And if that's not ready for production, I have a solo episode for Wednesday coming out as well. The Instagram, the hotline number, and all the other information will be linked in the show notes below. Thank you all so much for listening. Merch is getting finalized as far as who I'm going to go through for production and shipping and everything like that. I'm trying to streamline that process as much as possible since I work multiple jobs. But once again, thanks for listening, and I will see y'all later.